Section 2 of Weird Tales, Jules de Grandin, Volume 2, by Seabury Quinn. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Dead Hand, Part 2. The hammer proved to be an ordinary one, with a nickel head and imitation ebony handle, such as could be bought at any notion store for 25 cents. But de Grandin pounced on it like a hungry tomcat on a mouse, or a gold prospector on a 2-pound nugget, or a Kimberley miner on a 12-carat diamond. "But this is wonderful! This is superb!" he almost cooed as he swaddled the implement in several layers of paper, and stowed it tenderly away in an inside pocket of his great coat. "Trowbridge, my friend," he threw me one of his quick, enigmatic smiles, "do you attend the good Madame Kinnon? I have important duties to perform elsewhere. If possible, I shall return for dinner, and if I do, I pray you will have your amiable cook prepare for me one of her so delicious apple pies. If I return not," his little blue eyes twinkled a moment with frosty laughter, "I shall eat that pie for breakfast, like a good Yankee." Dinner was long since over, and the requested apple pie had been reposing untouched on the pantry shelf for several hours, when de Grandin popped from a taxicab like a jack-in-the-box from its case, and rushed up the front steps, the waxed ends of his little blond mustache twitching like the whiskers of an excited tomcat, his arms filled with bundles, a look of triumphant exhilaration on his face. "Quick! Quick, friend Trowbridge," he ordered as he deposited his packages on my office desk, "to the telephone. Call that Monsieur Richards, that rich man who so generously allowed me 48 hours to recover his lost treasures, and that Monsieur Kinnon, whose so precious cup of the Marquis de Lafayette was stolen. Call them both and bid them come here, right away, at once, immediately." Pardieu! He strode back and forth across my office with a step which was half run, half jig. This Jules de Grandin, never is the task imposed too great for him. "What in the world is the matter with you?" I demanded as I rang up the Richards house. "None, none," he replied, lighting a cigarette, then flinging it away unpuffed. "Ask me no questions, good friend, I do beseech you. Wait. Only wait till those others come, then you shall hear Jules de Grandin speak. Morbleu, but he shall speak a great mouthful." The Richards limousine, impressive in size like its owner, and, like its owner, heavily upholstered, was panting before my door in half an hour, and Kinnon drove up in his modest sedan almost as soon. Sergeant Costello, looking mystified, but concealing his wonder with the inborn reticence of a professional policeman, came into the office close on Kinnon's heels. "What is all this nonsense, Trowbridge?" Richards demanded testily, as he sank into a chair. "Couldn't you have come over to my house instead of dragging me out at this hour of night?" "Tut, tut, monsieur," de Grandin cut him short, running the admonitions so close together that they sounded like the exhaust of a miniature motor-boat. "Tut, tut, monsieur, is it not worth coming out into the cold to recover these?" From a brown paper parcel before him he produced a purple velvet case which he snapped open with a dramatic gesture, disclosing an array of scintillating gems. "These, I take it," he announced, "were once the property of Madame, your wife." "Great Scott!" gasped Richards, reaching out his hands for the jewels. "Why, you got 'em!" "But of course," de Grandin agreed, deftly, withdrawing the stones from Richards' reach and restoring them to their paper bag. "Also, monsieur, I have these." From another parcel he drew a sheaf of Liberty bonds, ruffling through them as a gambler might count his cards. "You said $20,000 worth, I believe?" "Très bien. There are just $21,000 certificates here, according to my count. Monsieur Kinnon," he bowed to our other visitor, "permit that I restore to you the cup of Monsieur Marquis de Lafayette." The Lafayette cup was duly extracted from another package and handed to its owner. "And now," de Grandin lifted an oblong pasteboard box of the sort used for shoes, and held it toward us as a prestidigitator might hold the hat from which he is about to extract a rabbit. "I will ask you to give me closest attention. Regardez, s'il vous plaît. Is it not what you gentlemen saw last night?" As he lifted the box lid we beheld, lying on a bed of crumpled tissue paper, what appeared to be the perfectly modelled reproduction of a beautiful feminine hand and wrist. The thumb and fingers, tipped with long almond-shaped nails, were exquisitely slender and graceful, and the narrow palm, where it showed above the curling digits, was pink and soft-looking as the underside of a La France rose petal. Only the smear of collodion across the severed wrist told us we gazed on something which once pulsated with life instead of a marvellously exact reproduction. "Is this not what you gentlemen saw last night?" de Grandin repeated, glancing from the lovely hand to Richards and Kinnan in turn. Each nodded a mute confirmation, but forbore to speak, as though the sight of the eerie, lifeless thing before him had placed a seal of silence on his lips. "Very good, very, very good," de Grandin nodded vigorously. "Now attend me, if you please. When Monsieur Kinnan told me of the hammer which broke his window last night, I decided the road by which to trace this bodiless burglar was mapped out on that hammer's handle. Pourquoi? Because this hand which scares sick ladies to death and breaks window-panes is one of three things. First, he ticked off on his fingers. It may be some mechanical device. In that case I shall find no traces. But it may be the ghost of someone who once lived, in which case again it is one of two things: a ghost hand per se, or the reanimated flesh of one who is dead. Or perchance it is the hand of someone who can render the rest of him invisible. Now then, if it is a ghost hand, either true ghost or living dead flesh, it is like other hands. It has ridges and valleys and loops and whorls which can be traced and recognized by fingerprint experts. Or, if a man can, by some process unknown to me, make all of him, save his hand, invisible, why then his hand, too, must leave finger marks. Hein? Now, Jules de Grandin asked Jules de Grandin, is it not highly probable that one who steals jewels and bonds and the cup of Monsieur le Marquis de Lafayette has stolen before, perchance been apprehended and finger-printed? Parbleu, it is even as you say, Jules de Grandin, answers Jules de Grandin. Thereupon I take that hammer from Monsieur Kinnan's house and go with it to New York. I see the commissioner of police. Monsieur le Préfet, I say to him, I am Jules de Grandin. Do you know me? Morbleu, but I do, reply that so excellent gentleman. Who but a fool has not heard of Jules de Grandin? He paused a moment, casting a pregnant glance at Richards, then continued. Monsieur le Préfet, I reply, I would that you permit your identification experts to examine this hammer and tell me, of their kindness, whose finger-prints appear thereon. Bien. The order was given, and in good time come the report that the hammer handle is autographed with the finger-prints of one Catherine O'Brien, otherwise known to the police as Catherine Lavoie, and also known as Catherine Dunstan. The police of New York have a dossier for this lady which would do credit to the Paris Sûreté. They tell me she was in turn a shoplifter, a decoy woman for some badger game gentleman, a forger, and the partner of one Professor Mysterio, a theatrical hypnotist. Indeed, they tell me she was married to this Professor à l'Italienne, and with him she travelled the country, sometimes giving exhibitions, sometimes indulging in crime, such as, for instance, burglary and pocket-picking. Now, about a year ago, while she and the professor are exhibiting themselves at Coney Island, this lady died. Her partner gave her a most remarkable funeral, but the ceremonies were marred by one untoward incident. While her body lay in the undertaker's mortuary, some thief did climb in the window and remove one of her hands. In the dead of night he severed from the beautiful body of that wicked woman the hand which had often extracted property from other people's pockets, and made off with it. Nor could all the policeman's efforts find out who did so ghoulish a deed. Meantime, the professor who was this woman's theatrical partner has retired from the stage, and lives in New Jersey on the fortune he has amassed. New Jersey, New Jersey, I say to me. Why, that is the place where my dear Trowbridge lives, and where these so mysterious burglaries have taken place. So back I come to Sergeant Costello and ask him if any stranger whose mode of income is unknown has lately moved into this vicinity. I have a picture of this Professor Mysterio which the New York police give me from their archives, and I show the picture to the good Costello. Pardieu, in English, he say, but I know the gentleman. He live in the Berryman house, out on the Andover road, and do nothing for his living but smoke a pipe and drink whiskey. Come, let us gather him in. While Sergeant Costello and I ride out to that house, I do much thinking. Hypnotism is thought, and thought is a thing which does not die. Now, if this dead woman had been in the habit of receiving mental commands from Professor Mysterio for so long, and had been accustomed to obey those commands with all parts of her body as soon as they were given, had she not formed a habit of obedience? Trowbridge, my friend, you are a physician. You have seen men die, even as I have. You know that a suddenly killed man falls in an attitude which was characteristic of him in life. Is it not so? I nodded agreement. Very well, then, de Grandin continued. I ask me if it is not possible that the hand this professor have commanded so many times in life cannot be made to do his bidding after death. Mon Dieu, the idea is novel, but not for that reason impossible. Did not that so superb Monsieur Poe hint at some such thing in his story of the dying man who remained alive because he was hypnotized? Most assuredly. So, when we get to the house of Professor Mysterio, Sergeant Costello points his pistol at the gentleman and says, "Put 'em up, buddy. We got the deceased wood upon you." Meanwhile I search the house. I find Monsieur Richard's jewelry and his bonds. I find Monsieur Kinman's cup of Monsieur le Marquis de Lafayette. I find much else, including this hand of a dead woman, which are not itself dead. Dieu. When I go to take it from its case, it attack me like a living thing, and Sergeant Costello have to promise he will blow the top from the professor's head before he order it to be quiet. And it obeyed his voice. Parbleu! When I see that, I have the flesh of the geese all over me. Rot! Richards flung the contemptuous comment like a missile. I don't know what kind of hocus-pocus made that hand move, but if you expect to make me believe any such nonsense as this stuff you've been telling, you've got the wrong pig by the ear. I shouldn't be surprised if you and this Professor What's-his-name were in cahoots in this thing, and you got cold feet and left your confederate holding the bag. I stared aghast at the man. De Grandin's vanity was as colossal as his ability, and though he was gentle as a woman in ordinary circumstances like a woman, he was capable of sudden flares of vixenish temper when his regard for human life became no greater than his concern for a troublesome fly. If the little Frenchman had launched himself at his traducer like a bobcat attacking a hound, I should have been less surprised than I was at the ominous calm with which he replaced the cover of the cardboard box containing the hand. "Friend Trowbridge," he asked, the muscles of his jaws standing out like whipcords as he strove to prevent a tell-tale quiver from creeping into his face, "will you be good enough to represent me, huh?" With the ejaculation he dodged suddenly downward, almost falling to the floor in his haste to avoid the flashing white object which dashed at his face. Nor was his dodge a split second too soon. Like the lid of a boiling kettle, the top of the shoe box had lifted, and the slender, quiescent hand which lay within had leaped through the opening, risen throat high in the air, and hurtled across the intervening space like a quarrel from a crossbow. With delicate, firm-muscled fingers outspread, it swooped through the air like a pouncing hawk, missed de Grandin's throat by the barest fraction of a second, and fastened itself, snapping like a strong spring-steel trap, in the puffy flesh sagging over the collar of Willis Richards' dress shirt. "Ah!" gasped, or rather croaked, the startled financier, falling backward in his chair and tearing futilely at the eldritch thing which sank its long, pointed nails into his purple skin. "Oh, God, it's choking me!" Costello was at his side, striving with all his force to pry those white, slender fingers open. He might as well have tried to wrench apart the clasp of a chrome-steel handcuff. "Non, non!" de Grandin shouted. "Not that way, Sergeant. It is useless." Leaping across the room, he jerked open the door of my instrument case, seized an autopsy knife, and dashed his shoulder against the burly detective, almost sending him sprawling. Next instant, with the speed and precision of an expert surgeon, he was dissecting away the deadly white fingers fastened in Richard's dewlap. "C'est complet," he announced matter-of-factly as he finished his grisly task. "A restorative, if you please, friend Trowbridge, and an antiseptic dressing for the wounds from the nails. He will not suffer unnecessarily." Wheeling, he seized the receiver from my desk telephone and called authoritatively, "Allo? Allo? The jail, if you please, Mademoiselle Centrale?" There was a brief parley. Finally he received his connection. Then, "Allo, Monsieur le Joaillier, can you tell me of Professor Mysterio, please? How is he? What does he do?" A pause. "Ah, do you say so? I thought as much. Many thanks, monsieur." He turned to us, a look of satisfaction on his face. "My friends," he announced solemnly, "Professor Mysterio is no more. 2 minutes ago the authorities at the city prison heard him call out distinctly in a loud voice, 'Katie, kill the Frenchman! I command you! Kill him!' When they rushed to his cell to discover the cause for his cries, they were but in time to see him dash himself from his bed, having first bound his waist-belt firmly to his throat and the top of his barred door. The fall broke his neck. He died before they could cut him down. Eh bien, he shook himself like a spaniel emerging from a pond. 'Twas a lucky thing for me I saw that box top begin to lift, and had the sense to dodge those dead fingers. None of you would have thought of the knife, I fear, before the thing had strangled my life away. As it is, I acted none too soon for Monsieur Richard's good." Still red in the face, but regaining his self-possession under my ministrations, Willis Richards sat up in his chair. "If you will give me my property, I'll be getting out of this hell-house," he announced gruffly, reaching for the jewels and bonds de Grandin had placed on the desk. "Assuredly, monsieur," de Grandin agreed. "But first you will comply with the law, n'est-ce pas? You have offered a reward of $5,000 for your property's return. Make out 2 checks, if you please, one for half the amount to good Sergeant Costello, the other for a similar amount to me." "I'll be hanged if I do," the banker declared, glaring angrily at de Grandin. "Why should a man have to buy his own stuff back?" Sergeant Costello rose ponderously to his feet and gathered the parcels containing Richard's belongings into his capacious hands. "Law's law," he announced decisively. "There'll be no bonds or jewels returned till that reward's been paid." All right, Richards agreed, reaching for his checkbook. "I'll pay you, but it's the damnedest hold-up I've ever had pulled on me." Growled Costello as the door slammed behind the irate banker. "If I ever catch that bird parking by a fire-plug or exceeding the speed limit, he'll see a hold-up that is a hold-up. I'll give him every summons in my book, and holler for more." "Tiens, my friends, think of the swine no more," de Grandin commanded. In France, had a man so insulted me, I should have called him out and run him through the body. But that one? Poof! Gold is his life's blood. I hurt him far more by forcing the reward from him than if I had punctured his fat skin a dozen times. Meantime, friend Trowbridge," his little eyes snapped with the heat lightning of his sudden smile, "there waits in the pantry that so delicious apple pie prepared for me by your excellent cook. Sergeant, Monsieur Kinnan, will you join us? Wind and weather permitting, friend Trowbridge and I propose eating ourselves into one glorious case of indigestion." Section 2